Hello, my name is Shay Wesley, and I am a somatic power dynamics practitioner. I am a practitioner who works with power dynamics, sensation, and consent to help clients explore dominance, surrender, and nervous system regulation in an embodied, trauma-aware way. I have created the After Dark series in order to offer a safe, guided space for individuals to reconnect with their bodies, explore sensual awareness, and experience intimate restoration through somatic presence and attuned guidance. Hello there. Before we begin, I want you to know exactly what this experience is designed to give to you. This intimate session is a somatic intimacy restoration journey, and I have created it to gently reintroduce your central nervous system to safety, sensuality, and pleasure in a way that feels deeply respectful, emotionally intelligent, and exquisitely attuned to you. You are not here to chase or to perform for anyone. You are here to be softened into yourself, to be praised for your sensitivity, and to be guided into a deeper relationship with your own body. And as we move through these sections together, my voice will meet your system slowly and intentionally, inviting your breath to deepen, your muscles to relax, and your sensual awareness to awaken only at the pace that feels right for you. And we are not rushing anything here. We are expanding your capacity to feel safe, desired, present, and beautifully responsive inside your own skin. And every one of my instructions is an invitation, never a demand. Every moment is about returning to yourself with tenderness. So I want you to allow our time to be sacred. Allow it to be a private sanctuary where you are admired for the way you listen, the way you soften, and the way you allow yourself to be guided. And your only job here is to listen to my voice, to breathe, to receive, and to notice what begins to awaken within you. And I'll take care of the rest. This intimate session was designed for the most tender, intelligent parts of you, the parts that have carried stories about sex, desire, and your body for far too long without ever being given a safe place to breathe. As you arrive here, allow your body to find a position that feels deeply supported, allowing your spine to lengthen, your shoulders to soften, and your belly to slowly release any effort that has been holding on to. I want you to allow your breath to move in and out with a slow, natural rhythm, as though each inhale is an invitation to come home to yourself, and every exhale is a gentle letting go of everything that no longer serves your sensual truth. You are stepping into a sacred space now, a space where your body is allowed to be honest, your desire is allowed to be curious, and your nervous system is allowed to remember that it was always meant to feel safe inside your own skin. And this time belongs entirely to you, to your healing, to your pleasure, and to the quiet reclamation of the parts of you that have been waiting patiently and lovingly to be invited back into the center of your life. Tonight, we are entering the territory of healing sexual suppression and conditioning, not as an abstract idea, but as a living experience inside your body, your breath, your memory, and your energy field. But suppression is rarely just about sex. It is about the way your body learns to dim itself in order to be accepted, the way your voice learned to hesitate when speaking truth, and the way your desire learned to fold itself away in order to keep the peace. Conditioning around sexuality often began long before you had words for it, woven into the rules you absorbed at the dinner table, the lessons you heard in spiritual spaces, the comments whispered about bodies, pleasure, and what it meant to be good or worthy. And over time, those messages wrapped themselves around your nervous system like a tight fabric, shaping the way you moved, the way you touched, and the way you allowed yourself to be touched. And then, the way you experienced your own sensual aliveness. Healing sexual suppression is the process of gently unweaving that fabric, thread by thread, so that your body can breathe again, so that your pleasure can speak again, and your sensual nature can exist as the sacred, innocent, powerful force it was always meant to be. My work matters for somatic intimacy recovery because intimacy is not only what happens between you and another person. Intimacy is the way you inhabit your own body, the way you listen to your sensations, and the way you allow your central nervous system to feel safe enough to open, soften, and receive the fullness of your own life. When you bring healing to these old patterns, you restore the bridge between your body and your heart, between your desires and your soul, and between your sensuality and your sense of spiritual belonging. Every breath that you take in this work becomes quiet declaration that your body is no longer a place of policing and performance, but rather a living sanctuary of truth, pleasure, and profound self-respect. And my voice is here with you in this space as a guide, a witness, and a companion for the parts of you that have been carrying this weight in silence for far too long. My work lives at the intersection of the nervous system, the subconscious mind, spiritual healing, and sensual reclamation, and everything I create is devoted to helping your body remember that it was always designed for safety, connection, and pleasure. And I too have walked through my own initiations with shame, conditioning, and suppression. And I know how disorienting that it can feel to untangle the stories that were handed to you and learn, slowly and lovingly, to trust your own inner truth again. And what I have learned through my own healing and through the stories of so many others is that the body never forgets its original design. It only waits for an environment where it feels safe enough to reveal it. Somatic intimacy recovery is the process of giving your body that environment, of speaking to your nervous system in a language it understands, and holding your sensations with reverence rather than judgment, and of inviting your pleasure to return as a wise, holy companion. My voice is here to hold a frequency of softness and sovereignty for you, to remind you that every tremble, every thaw, every tear, and every shiver of awakening is a sign that your system is releasing what it was never meant to carry. So during this session, I'm going to guide you back to a relationship with your body where sensuality feels like prayer, where desire feels like guidance, and where intimacy with yourself becomes the foundation for every connection you build in this lifetime. As you listen, my intention is that your body feels less alone, your heart feels more held, and your nervous system feels gently invited into a new pattern, one where your sensual self is welcomed, honored, and deeply cherished. There comes a moment in every person's healing when they begin to recognize, often with a tremble of grief or a rising wave of relief, that the limitations wrapped around their sensuality never belonged to them at all. Because the shame that once felt so intimate to their identity did not originate in their body. The fear that once caught in their throat did not begin with their breath. And the repression that tightened around their desire was not born from any truth within them, but it was inherited, carried down through generations of people who themselves never had permission to feel fully alive, woven through religious doctrine, cultural norms, family expectations, and the subtle unspoken rules that dictate who they were allowed to be, how they are allowed to move, and what parts of their humanity they were allowed to acknowledge. When you step into the work of healing sexual suppression, you are not merely attempting to transform your relationship with pleasure. You are placing your hands on the threads of an ancestral fabric and pulling apart narratives that have been wrapped around your nervous system for so long that they once felt like your own skin. And in doing so, you are interrupting a lineage of silence, reclaiming a truth that predates your conditioning, and returning yourself to a version of humanity that is whole, organic, curious, soft, honest, and profoundly deserving of freedom. This work is not small. It is not trivial or cosmetic. It is sacred in a way that touches both the body and the lineage it came from, blending psychological restoration, nervous system recalibration, and the kind of sensual awakening that feels less like desire and more like remembering who you were before the world taught you to become small. And as this awakening unfolds within you, your body begins to glow with a new kind of intelligence, the kind that pulses in slow waves beneath the surface of your skin, whispering that your pleasure has always been a form of wisdom, that your longing has always been a compass, and that your sensuality has always been a language written directly into your cells. And you may notice your breath lengthening in ways that feel like devotion, as though your lungs have finally unclenched enough to allow life to move through them with tenderness and ease. And you may feel warmth blooming in the deepest parts of your belly, a warmth that speaks of possibility, expression, and the exquisite thrill of self-permission. And you may even sense your hips becoming more fluid, as if they remember the way they once swayed before anyone told them to stiffen. You may feel your chest soften, not in vulnerability, but in sovereignty, as though your heart recognizes that sensual freedom is one of the most courageous forms of truth. And every sensation that rises in your body is an invitation, a gentle signal from your nervous system saying, yes, this belongs to you. And with every moment of openness, your pleasure becomes more familiar, more trustworthy, and more beautifully your own. Your body loves honesty, and when you finally allow it to speak, it greets you with a tenderness that feels like reunion. Your inner world begins to unfurl with a grace that feels almost ceremonial, as though each breath is clearing a space for your sensuality to return home. Your desire stretches awake with the same slow elegance as dawn, illuminating parts of you that once lived in quiet corners of your psyche. Your skin begins to tingle with awareness, welcoming sensation as a form of nourishment rather than something to guard against. Your voice grows richer, fuller, more resonant, shaped by the truth that intimacy begins with the sound of your own inner permission. And there is a moment when you feel the ancestral weight slide right off your shoulders, not dramatically, but with a softness that feels like the body exhaling after centuries of holding its breath. And in that moment, you become the first in your lineage to choose expansion over silence, connection over constriction, and sensual presence over inherited caution. And your nervous system recognizes this shift instantly, responding with waves of spaciousness that move through you like a warm current flowing toward the edges of your being. And your body begins to trust itself with a depth that feels like intimacy in its purest form, an intimacy that does not depend on anyone else's understanding. Your desires rise like waves guided by lunar pull, directing you back to the most essential parts of your being. And your pleasure becomes a creative force, reshaping the way your mind understands safety, belonging, and self-reverence. And your energy field expands unmistakably, shimmering with the unmistakable signature of someone reclaiming their sensual inheritance. This reclamation is a celebration that echoes through more than your tissues. It echoes through your lineage, your psyche, and even your future. And in the days to come, your sensuality begins to feel like a homecoming, a return to a rhythm that was always waiting beneath every contraction. And your inner voice becomes more compassionate, guiding you toward softness rather than scrutiny. And your imagination begins to open new portals of possibility, showing you versions of yourself that move with grace, confidence, and embodied truth. Your relationship with desire becomes less like chasing and more like receiving, a gentle unfolding that honors your entire being. And as your sensuality rises without apology, your entire nervous system recalibrates around the knowing that your pleasure is a living form of wisdom. Your body is a vessel of sacred expression, and your lineage is grateful, truly grateful, that you were the one who chose to awaken. Your healing becomes a lighthouse, illuminating pathways for others to follow when they too are ready to reclaim their own sensual truth. And your presence becomes a frequency of permission, reminding anyone who nears you that fullness is possible, softness is powerful, and desire is divine. And your story becomes a testament to what happens when a person finally listens to the quiet hum of their own sensual intelligence. And your body, in its exquisite brilliance, continues to unfurl into the freedom it has always been worthy of experiencing, slowly, gently, and with a reverence that feels like destiny remembering itself. Now we know that shame, in its truest form, does not originate from within the body. It is introduced gently at first, then repetitively, until it becomes so familiar that it feels like identity. And over time, it weaves itself into the way your shoulders fold inward to minimize your presence. The way your breath becomes shallow the moment you sense desire awaken. Inherited shame does not speak with clarity. It whispers through the nervous system in phrases that were never yours, shaping the internal atmosphere with quiet directives like don't want too much, don't feel too deeply, don't move like that, don't express that part of yourself, don't let them see who you really are, until eventually the body begins to believe that innocence must remain hidden and that desire must remain silent. But shame does not live in your pelvis or in your heart, or in the shimmering sensual energy that moves through you when you breathe deeply and allow yourself to be present. Shame lives only in conditioning, in the repeated stories that were spoken or implied with such authority that they begin to masquerade the truth, even though they never matched the wisdom of your body. Your body has always been innocent, your desire has always been innocent, and your curiosity will always be innocent. And the very moment you recognize the innocence beneath your layers, the inherited shame begins to dissolve like fog, catching the warmth of morning sunlight, revealing that the problem was never you, but the programming that tried to separate you from your own truth. And as this recognition settles into your tissues, your body begins to soften with an almost reverential relief, as though every cell has been waiting for this kindness to return. Your central nervous system responds beautifully to honesty, and the moment you acknowledge that shame never belonged to you, your inner world shifts with a grace that feels ceremonial. Your breath deepens with devotion, carrying softness into places that once held stories of limitation. Your throat loosens in a way that makes your voice feel more resonant, more authentic, and more aligned with the rhythm of your inner truth. Your hips, they begin to find a new fluidity, guided not by performance, but by the innate intelligence of embodied freedom. Your heart glows with the quiet courage of someone reclaiming their sacred birthright. And even religious conditioning once tried to confine your sensuality into narrow pathways. Yet your body has always known that intimacy is a spiritual phenomenon, and your cells have always recognized that desire is woven from the same origin as prayer. Cultural repression once attempted to shrink your expression into socially approved shapes, yet your truth continues to pulse beneath those constraints with a rhythm that cannot be erased. Family expectations once wrapped your pleasure in silence, yet your lineage carries ancient memories of bodies that knew how to move, how to feel, and how to celebrate sensation without shame. So it is in this moment that we completely and effortlessly release shame from our body, our mind, and our spirit. And as your inner landscape clears, you begin to feel the tenderness that has always lived beneath the conditioning, a tenderness that speaks through every warm exhale. And you notice the way your inner emotional weather begins to shift toward clarity, allowing sensations to rise without judgment or fear. You feel the way your sensuality becomes curious again, stretching itself awake like a cat finding sunlight. And you can sense your body welcoming pleasure not as a rebellion, but as restoration. And you begin to hear the soft inner wisdom that says your aliveness has always been holy. And it is this recognition that becomes your gateway, opening you into a deeper relationship with your own presence. And your nervous system recalibrates around the truth that pleasure and purity are not opposites, but rather they are partners in your human experience. Your mind begins to trust the body's impulses, recognizing them as signals of reclamation rather than echoes of forbidden territory. And your energy expands in every direction, creating space for your sensual nature to breathe freely. Your entire being responds with a kind of luminous gratitude, grateful for the moment that you chose liberation over fear. And as inherited shame continues to melt within the warmth of your awareness, your movements become more intentional, more expressive, and more authentically connected to your inner landscape. Your sensual energy starts to flow with a clarity that feels like remembering rather than learning. Your emotional responses feel richer and more refined, guided by the sovereignty that comes from knowing your innocence never left you. Your internal dialogue becomes a sanctuary of encouragement rather than a chamber of quiet constraint. Your presence becomes an atmosphere of permission, both for yourself and anyone who is lucky enough to witness your embodiment. And through this unfolding, you step into a lineage transforming truth. The wisdom of your sensuality predates every rule that attempted to restrain it. Your body carries the memory of a freedom that is older than shame, older than doctrine, and older than any cultural script. And your healing activates the voices of ancestors who have longed for a moment like this, a moment when someone finally remembered the purity of their desire. Your reclamation becomes an offering to the lineage behind you and a guiding light to the lineage ahead. So as you rest here in a body that is softening, awakening, and blooming, you realize that your sensual truth has always been waiting for you with patience, devotion, and a softness that feels like home. This is where your freedom begins to feel embodied, intimate, and unmistakably your own. This is where innocence and desire meet without conflict. This is where your body remembers its original language. And this is where your shame dissolves into nothingness, while your sensuality rises with grace, power, and exquisite clarity. Now, in the next part of this session, I want to discuss with you dismantling low-frequency narratives about sex, your body, and your worthiness. Low-frequency narratives are the stories designed to shrink you, to make you obedient to systems rather than connected to yourself. And they often insist that love must be earned through self-denial, that worthiness depends on restraint, and that the body is dangerous, that pleasure is sinful, that desire cannot exist with purity, and that spirituality and sensuality must remain separate, even though this separation is nowhere found in the natural world or in the quiet wisdom of your own inner truth. And in fact, These narratives disconnect you from your body, your intuition, your sensual intelligence, and your spiritual power. But deep within you is a knowing that sexuality itself is not low frequency, that shame is, that repression is, that fear is, and that silence is, and that the body was never meant to be a battlefield, but rather a sanctuary of sensation, expression, grounding, and connection. And so the work becomes a gentle inquiry, a soft but unshakable questioning of whose rules you are still obeying, whose voice are you still carrying in your body, and whose fear have you mistaken for your own truth. And when you identify these voices, you do not fight them, you simply release them, because they have never belonged to you. And you remember instead that your body belongs to you, your pleasure belongs to you, your worthiness to you, and that no culture, doctrine, partnership, or past experience has the authority to define your sexual or sensual identity anymore. Because you are the one writing it now with clarity, with intelligence, curiosity, sovereignty, patience, and grace. And as you begin this dismantling, something extraordinary happens within your inner landscape. Your breath becomes fuller. Your lungs finally trust the spaciousness of your most authentic truth. Your spine grows taller with a subtle, dignified confidence that feels like memory rising through your bone and marrow. Your chest warms with a tenderness that signals your return to yourself, and your pelvic region awakens with a glow that feels like a sacred remembrance. Your voice becomes more resonant, shaped by the recognition that self-expression is an act of liberation. And low-frequency narratives once taught you to compress your radiance. Yet your radiance expands the moment you honor your body's inherent wisdom. And these same low-frequency narratives once insisted that desire dilutes spirituality, and yet your desire carries a frequency that clarifies your spiritual path rather than distorting it. And those same narratives attempted to place a veil over your sensuality, yet your sensuality glimmers through every crack in that veil, reminding you that truth is stronger than oppression. They once framed restraint as virtue, yet your vitality reveals that authenticity is the true virtue. And they once painted pleasure as indulgence, yet your nervous system recognizes pleasure as nourishment. So with every breath you're taking, you're peeling away another layer of outdated programming, not with aggression, but with reverence for the person that you are becoming. Your body begins to respond with exquisite cooperation, welcoming the dissolution of narratives that once confined your aliveness. And your intuition becomes more clear, guiding you toward choices that honor your emotional, sensual, and spiritual wholeness. And your energy field expands, allowing more light to circulate through the places that once held inherited scarcity. Your heart beats with a rhythm that affirms your inherent worthiness. And when you question these narratives, you do so with softness rather than defensiveness, because your sovereignty grows from clarity, not force. And you trace each belief back to its origin and discover that most of them were planted before you had a language to even understand their impact. And you observe how these narratives shaped the way your body moved, the way your desire expressed itself, and the way your sense of worth formed. And yet, you also feel the power rising within you to rewrite every one of them. You feel the dignity of choosing truth over tradition. And you feel the hum of inner liberation vibrating through your fascia, your breath, your mind. New possibilities emerge as you step deeper into this work. You realize that sensual intelligence enhances spiritual clarity. You recognize that embodiment is a form of prayer, and you discover that pleasure can be a pathway to presence. You honor the way your body serves as both compass and sanctuary. And in this reclamation, your self-perception begins to transform with a beauty that feels almost ceremonial. Your movements grow slower and more intentional, as though your body is savoring its own liberation. And your emotions flow more freely, expressing themselves with honesty rather than suppression. And your inner monologue becomes a sanctuary of encouragement, guiding you toward deeper intimacy with yourself. And your sensuality begins to speak in subtle pulses, reminding you that your body is a source of wisdom and never a source of shame. And low-frequency narratives lose their authority when you see them clearly, and each moment of clarity strengthens the bond between your inner truth and your physical expression. You begin to experience desire as a sacred messenger. You begin to feel your body as a living cathedral of sensation, and you begin to trust pleasure as a compass pointing you toward wholeness. And you begin to experience your worthiness as something woven into your very existence. And as these outdated stories dissolve, your entire being shifts into a higher coherence. Your sensuality harmonizes with your spirituality. Your mind collaborates with your body rather than policing it. And your energy expands with a richness that feels deeply feminine, deeply sacred, deeply alive. And your soul relaxes into the truth that your essence has always been radiant. And this is the transformation that occurs when you dismantle narratives that once confined your sensual identity. You become spacious inside your own skin. You become luminous in your own presence. You become sovereign in your own pleasure. You become the author of a new story, one written with dignity, curiosity, reverence, respect, softness, and unshakable truth. Your sensual sovereignty rises here. And as you heal sexual suppression, you reclaim your voice, your desire, your boundaries, your intuition, your relationship with your body, your confidence, your self-trust, your pleasure, and your identity. And it's all because you are no longer living inside a story written by someone who never understood your depth. You are choosing to write your own. You are choosing embodiment over shame, choosing truth over fear. You're choosing freedom over conditioning and allowing the most essential parts of you to return home. And in this reclamation, quiet, elegant, powerful, you begin to realize that you were always meant to be free, and everything within you is rising toward that freedom now. So as this rise begins, it does not arrive with urgency. It arrives with the slow and sacred unfolding that feels like silk warming beneath sunlight. Now your breath deepens as though your lungs finally trust the space they are being offered. Your hips soften with a grace that suggests ancient memory waking from a long sleep. And your heart expands with a radiance that feels like truth blooming inside a sanctuary made entirely for you. So it is in this very moment that your nervous system steadies, as though it has been waiting for this moment of alignment for far longer than your conscious mind has known. Sensual sovereignty is not a posture, it is a frequency. It hums through your bones with the unmistakable signature of someone returning to themselves authentically. It glows beneath your skin with a warmth that feels devotional and intimate. It expresses itself through the way your shoulders naturally roll back into presence. It expresses itself through the way your pelvis begins to trust movement again. And as you rise into sovereignty, your intuition sharpens with a remarkable clarity. Your inner voice becomes more resonant, guiding you toward choices shaped by self-respect rather than fear of disapproval. Your desires speak with a confidence that feels like truth rather than temptation. Your boundaries become expressions of love rather than defenses shaped by old wounds. And your decisions align with your deepest values rather than inherited expectations. There is a grace that enters your body when you reclaim your sensual power, a grace that does not need to be taught because it was always yours. Your movements become more fluid in the days to come, guided by internal permission rather than external approval. Your emotions balance with a greater ease, flowing, trusting that your body can hold intensity with capacity and wisdom. Your pleasure begins to awaken with a warmth that feels reverential rather than rebellious. And your confidence rises with a softness that enhances your presence rather than hardening it. And your confidence rises with a softness that enhances your presence rather than hardening it. And in this rising, your entire inner world begins to recognize its sovereignty. Your entire world reorganizes itself around your sovereignty, and your breath becomes a declaration of this belonging. Your energy settles into new coherence, aligning your body, your mind, and emotional center. And rather than a source of confusion, your sensuality reveals itself as a form of intelligence. And your identity becomes anchored in authenticity rather than adaptation. And sensual sovereignty teaches you that pleasure and power are not opposites. They are collaborators in your liberation. It teaches you that your body is not simply a vessel, but a living temple of intuition and expression. It teaches you that your wholeness is amplified through embodiment. It teaches you that your freedom begins in the softest parts of your being. And as these teachings settle into your cells, you feel yourself becoming someone who stands with quiet authority in your own body, someone who allows desire to exist without justification. So it is in this moment that you become someone who honors her sensation as sacred communication. Someone who moves with a kind of self-knowing that feels both ancient and newly born. Someone whose presence radiates invitation rather than apology. And this rise continues with every breath you take. Your sensual nature expands as you release the stories that once dimmed your expression, and your pleasure deepens as you grant yourself full permission to feel without censorship. Your connection to yourself becomes a wellspring of intimacy that nourishes every part of your life. And through this process here with me, you become someone who steps into every room with an unspoken sovereignty that does not require announcement. Your energy becomes magnetic. Your presence becomes soothing in its honesty. Your sensuality becomes luminous in its freedom. Your identity becomes unmistakable in its alignment. And as you stand here in this rising, in this reclamation, and in this truth, you feel a quiet certainty forming in your chest. A certainty that whispers with exquisite clarity that your sensual sovereignty has always been your birthright, and it is choosing you as passionately as you are choosing it. This is the moment you become the author of your own desire. This is the moment you reclaim your relationship with your own body. And this is the moment your truth receives its voice. Your liberation begins to pulse through you with an undeniable power. Now, as this journey comes to a close for now, I want you to allow yourself to notice how your body feels in this moment. Even if the shifts are subtle, even if the changes feel like whispers rather than declarations, I want you to offer a breath of gratitude to your nervous system for showing up today, for listening, for allowing even a small degree of softening, opening, or remembering to take place within you tonight. And I want you to know that this healing does not end when the audio stops. It continues in the way that you touch your own skin, in the way you speak to your body tomorrow, and in the way you honor the sensations that rise within you with more curiosity and compassion. And if this experience feels like medicine for your sensual recovery, and you want more spaces like this, you are invited to come and rest with me inside the New America Healthcare Protocols channel on YouTube. This is where I host ongoing meditations, nervous system reset sessions, and deeper journeys into somatic intimacy and spiritual awakening. So whenever you're ready, I want you to bring a little movement back into your fingers and toes, returning slowly to the room around you when you're ready, and carrying this tenderness with you as you rise, knowing that every time you return to this work, your body remembers a little more of its own sacred, sensual truth. I'm Shay Wesley, and I've been your guide today. Let's talk again soon.